Before we begin Judges chapter 13 and about Samson, I want you to tell me your understanding of Samson. When you hear the word Samson from the Bible, what comes to your mind? Strong. What else? Long hair. Delilah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, how about this one? When you hear the word Samson, what image that comes to your mind? What does Samson look like in your head when you hear the word Samson? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, what comes to your mind? So, okay, that's the image that Yansu has. What about other people? When you hear the word Samson, what image comes to your mind? Manly man, long hair. Mm. Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. Why do you have that kind of image in your head? Mm. Okay. Is that how you learned? Okay. Okay. All right. So, based on what you see, so you got this image in your head because that's how you've been taught. Okay. If that's how you've been taught, we're going to have to pull that image out of your head today. Yeah, it's like a reverse engineering. Okay. All right, let's turn to chapter 13. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistine for 40 years. So, many of the times, throughout the book of Judges, you keep hearing this word repeatedly. It's repetitions, and it's a cycles that you see. And as I explained it multiple times, that this shows that, no matter how we try, and sometimes we are faithful to the Lord, but a lot of times we degrade our faith. So the law you know the difference between theory and the law, right? There's a what's called a theory, and there's what's called a law. Law is something that doesn't change over time. Theory, on the other hand, is keep changing. It's not set in stone. So when you buy a new car, when you buy a new house, when you buy any merchandise, when you leave that object for a long period of time, does it actually gets renewed and gets better over time, or does it actually get worse and decay? Right? Which way it's actually going? It's getting to the better state, or it's getting to the worst state? It's getting to the worst state. That's the law, right? No matter what product you purchase, no matter what you have, when you purchase it new, this is the best state that you can be. And then as you leave that object for a long period of time, you start to go into actually continue to, lose the, depreciates and it's getting worse over time. That's how we are today. Our fate, one day it's actually good, but over time it always started to go down. And then we have to pull ourselves up to just like, I can't be like this, I have to come back to the Lord. So like the state of our fate is like going down, up, and going down, up. It's like the saw shape, right? Go up, down, up, down. That's the kind of state we are. So when you look at this judge, that's the state they're in. Like someday when God delivers the Israelites, and then they bring up their fate, but they started to decline their fate, and then comes back and then decline. So that's the kind of state that you see. Our fate is never stays either straight or go up all the time. It's always downward and then go upward, downward, upward, downward. So God is just showing us, no matter how hard we try, we'll always go through that kind of state. Again, and when I look at just the past weeks, my life and my faithful life, when I look at myself, I've been living that way as well. It is not always going up like this. Not always like stay up, like up, down, up, down, up, down. It's just depending upon, what's the length? Is that week period? Is that a month period? So, each person might be different, but you will always go through the patterns. So let's take a look at chapter 13, verse 2. There was a certain man of Zorah of the tribe of the Danite, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful, and drink no wine or a strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. So let's take a look at a few things here. There was a certain man of Zorah. Okay. Certain man of Zorah. So he's coming from the land called Zorah, or the place called Zorah, of the tribe of Danites. So let's take a look at this. Zorah means, it's coming from the word Zara. This means, it's actually means leprosy. So the town where he was coming from, is actually from a town called Zorah, which means leprosy, which means, well, is that means this is the place where most of the leprosies are living? I don't know. But this place is called Zorah. And it happened to be the leprosy. And he's coming from the tribe of Dan. So when you hear the Dan, do you actually have a good image of a Dan? The tribe of Dan? No, we don't. So let's start from this. He's coming from a town called Zorah, and he's coming from the tribe of Dan, which is probably the worst tribe. From the worst place is cold, right? It's not worthy place. It's where it starts. That's where the deliverers are coming from. As if Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but he was raised in Nazareth. What's the place called Nazareth? What kind of people are living in Nazareth? So think of this way. You never lived in really New York City, but you hear the word Harlem, right? In New York City, in Manhattan. Even though you never lived in Harlem, but when you hear the word Harlem, what comes to your mind? What kind of image comes to your mind? Yeah, right. Well, today may not be the same as what you think of. You don't think of the Harlem. Harlem is actually has been enhanced significantly. It's gotten better place, but compared to other places in Manhattan, Harlem is not the best place you want to hang out, right? This is not the place you want to just to be in, having a sightseeing or anything like that, right? Or maybe sightseeing is okay, but that's definitely not the place you want to hang out at night, for sure, right? Why? Because, as you pointed out, the Harlem has always been notorious about the places called the poverties, and it's always a crime, a high rate of crimes, and it's not a good place to be. Nazareth is like that. Nazareth is the place called like nobody wants to be. That's a very poor place, and lots of poverty. Poor people are living. That's why called, Messiah does not come from Nazareth. This is why they say these things, because what good things coming out of Nazareth? It's like, presidents coming out of Harlem? No way. Kind of things. That's the kind of image that people had in their mind. So when you think about this Zorah and from Danite, which is the worst tribe and worst place to be in. So, and there is a woman who is barren, cannot have a child. But the angel appeared and said, you will have a son. Mary was a virgin, not supposed to have a child, but she had a child. A barren could not have a child, but she will have a child. So when you actually link those together, it's like a very similar story of Jesus Christ. Right? And then you're not supposed to eat all this, fermented drinks, because he was called to be Nazarite. When you look at the Numbers chapter 6, it talks about the rules and the laws of Nazarite. As the people was devoted to the Lord as called to be Nazarite, they're not supposed to drink fermented drinks. And then verse 5, it says, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be Nazarite to God from the womb. He shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. So, he's coming as deliverer, savior. Verse 6. Then the woman came and told her husband, "A man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of the angel of God, very awesome. I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he said to me, Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death." So this son will be devoted to the Lord. That's why he's not supposed to drink any strong drinks or fermented drinks. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, please let the man of God whom you send come again to us and teach us what we are to do with the child who will be born." When I look at this, I don't know about, this Samson's dead, but, just for this particular things that he was thinking about, I admire. And this, every parent or every parents should have this kind of prayer. This is something I didn't do before. And how should I raise my kids? Lord, teach me how to raise a child, which is a good prayer. And God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came again to the woman as she sat in the field, but Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Interesting part is Manoah is the one who's praying, but the angel of the Lord appeared at the woman. It's like, what? Manoah is the person who prayed, and he's saying, teach us how to raise our kids. But the angel of the Lord does not appear to Manoah, which is the one who prayed, but to his wife. And then, so the woman ran quickly and told her husband, "Behold, the man who came to me the other day has appeared to me." And Manoah arose and went after his wife and came to the man and said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And he said, "I am." And Manoah said, "Now, when your words come true, what is to be the child's manner of life, and what is his mission?" And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean things. All that I commanded her, let her observe." Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you." And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "If you detain me, I will not eat of your food, but if you prepared a burnt offering, then after it to the Lord." For Manoah did not know that he was angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that when your word come true, we may honor you?" And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" So Manoah took the young goat with his grain offerings and offered it on the rock to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. And Manoah and his wife were watching. And when the flame went up towards the heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." But his wife said to him, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and grain offering at our hands, or shown us all these things, or now announced to us such things as these." And the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. And the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahanedan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So the first thing is, Manoah, when he met with the man, he was trying to worship this man. And he said, no, you're not supposed to worship me. You have to worship the Lord. Because at this time, as you know, this is the time when people are corrupted in faith. They don't know how to worship the Lord. They've been worshiping all these kinds of idols, and whatever they can bow down, they think they can, that this whatever things that they're worshiping will bless them, which is not true. And he's kind of used to this, and he's trying to worship this man because he's telling in them that you will have a child, and the child will be the deliverer of the Israel. So Manoah was trying to worship the angel of the Lord. He said, no, you're not supposed to worship me. You have to worship God, not me. So this is something that we have to pay attention. When we receive blessings and when we receive a message from someone, it could be me, it could be from your pastor, it could be from your mentor, it could be from your friends, your fellow Christians, whoever they are nothing more than a messenger of God. They're delivering the message to you. They're not the one to be worshipped. They're not the one who to be rely on. And this is something I've been kept emphasizing to you, that I'm not the one to be adored. I'm not the one who's to be worshipped, right? I'm nothing more than an instrument to deliver the message to the Lord and interpret it what God is saying. I'm not the Lord. Lord is behind me, and he's the one to be praised, and he's the one to be worshipped, right? We always have to remember that. And then this incidents that they did, they worshiped the Lord and gave the burnt offering, the grain offering. And where do they place this grain offering and the burnt offering? On the rock. On the rock. And then where did the flame come from? So what did he say here? Verse 20. Right, so from the rock, flame came up, burned the burnt offerings, grain offering, which is very similar to what we have seen when we read the story of Gideon, and a very similar story. Remember that? And then the Spirit of the Lord stirred up. Right? When you look at the verse 25, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him. Who's him? Samson, right? So the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahanedan, between the Zorah and Eshtaol. Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. Then he came up and told his fathers and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah, and now get her for me as my wife. But his father and mother said to him, Is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives, or among all our people, and that you must go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, and for she is right in my eyes. His father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord. He was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistine ruled over Israel. Okay. Here comes my interpretations of this story. All right. So I'm going to map it into the Samson as a Jesus. The Philistine girl, we don't even know her name, Philistine girl, is a Gentile woman, not a uncircumcised woman. But this uncircumcised woman is where is who Samson loves. Right? And then we're going to take a look at this woman. Continue on. Then Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah, and they came to the vineyard of Timnah, and behold, a young lion came toward him, roaring. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and although he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion in pieces as one tears a young goat. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she was right in Samson's eyes. So when you look at the story, there's no good reason why the Samson fell in love with this woman, the Philistine woman. He said, well, get her for me, for she is right in my eyes. That's all he said. Right? So when you look at verse 7, same thing. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she was right in Samson's eyes. It's not because she was better or, she was, good looking. Nothing like that. It's just like it's good in Samson's eyes. Continue on. After some days he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lions, and honey. He scraped it out into his hands and went on, eating as he went. And he came to his father and mother and gave some to them, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey from the carcass of the lion. You, as a Nazirite, you're not supposed to drink any fermented drink, nor go near the death body, or carcass. You're not supposed to get near as a Nazirite. But Samson completely ignored, and he actually pulled the honeys out of the lion's carcass. First of all, it makes no sense. It makes no sense, right? Why would bee grow, put the honeys in lion's carcass, right? It makes no sense. But that's what he did. He completely ignored the rules and the law as a Nazirite. He actually pulled the honeys out of the lion's carcass and ate it, and then gave it to his parents. Continue on. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there, for so the young man used to do. As soon as the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said to him, "Let me now put a riddle to you. If you can tell me what it is within the 7 days as the feast, and find out, then I will give you 30 linen garment and 30 changes of a cloth. But if you cannot tell me what it is, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of a cloth." And they said to him, "Put your riddle, and we may hear it." And he said to them, "Out of the eaters came something to eat, out of the strong came something sweet, and in 3 days they could not solve the riddle. On the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, 'Entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us?' And Samson's wife wept over him and said, 'You only hate me. You do not love me. You have put the riddle to my people, and you have not told me what it is.' And he said to her, 'Behold, I have not told my fathers nor my mother, and shall I tell you?' So she wept before him, and 7 days that their feast lasted, and on the seventh day she told her, because she pressed him hard, and then she told the riddle to her people. And the men of the city said to him on the seventh day before the sun went down, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" And he said to them, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and struck down 30 men of the town, and took their spoils, and gave the garment to those who had told the riddle. In hot anger, he went back to his father's house, and Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. So let's take a look at this story. It's kind of a strange story. But think about this. Samson loved her. I don't know about this woman really loved Samson or not. But Samson loved her. And he actually gave the riddles to the Philistines. And they're the one who want to hear the riddle. So he told them the riddle. And then, after 3 days, they went down to the woman and threatened her. "If you don't tell us the answer of his riddle, we're going to burn you and your father's house." So the woman ran to Samson and said, "If you love me, tell me the answer." So when you hear this, what is her interest? Yeah, she's manipulative, but her interest is not Samson. Interest is for her, for her house, and for his people. Samson is not in the picture. Right? When you look at this story overall, her interest is not for him. I'm not so sure whether this woman truly loved Samson. Samson loved her, but she does not love him. Only thing she cares is herself, her family, and her people. That's all she cares about. She doesn't have interest for Samson. Right? But Samson loved her, so eventually he told her the answer. So that means, even though Samson knew that she would actually tell her people about this answer, Samson gave that answers to her. Even though he knows that she would actually tell other people. So it's like a one-way love. It's like woman, right? In story, it's like Israel, and it's like the church. Samson, you can actually map it into Jesus, who loves people. His church. His people. But the church and the Israel, their interest is only about themselves and for their own benefit. Is not the love for the man. So the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and then he was able to actually, beat out the people, and then brought the clothes and the money and a garment and actually gave it to those people. So the story ends here, the one story. So the whole thing was planned out by who? Whose plan was this? No, the whole plan, it was the Lord's plan. It was not the Samson's plan. It's not their parents' plan. It was the Lord who planned to have this happen. Everything was mapped out, and plotted by the Lord. It is not by anyone else. It was God who actually planned it. It was the God who actually executed it. It's just that Samson was used to actually, execute this plan. He was just the executioner. And then, the second story, chapter 15. After some day, at the time of wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife with the young goat, and he said, I will go into my wife in the chamber. But her father would not allow him to go in. And her father said, I really thought that you utterly hated her, so I gave her to your companion. Is it not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please take her instead. And Samson said to him, This time I shall be innocent in regards to the Philistines when I do them harm. So Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took torches, and he turned them tail to tail and put a torch between each pair of tails. And when he had set fire to the torches, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and set fire to the stacked grain and the standing grain, as well as the olive orchard. Then the Philistines said, Who has done this? Then they said to Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistine came up and burned her and her father with fire. And Samson said to him, If this is what you do, I swear I will avenge on you, and after that I will quit. And he struck them hip and thigh with a great blow, and he went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock of Etham. Then the Philistine came up and encamped in Judah and made a raid on Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why have you come up against us? They said, We have come up to bind Samson, to do to him as he did to us. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etham and said to Samson, Do you not know what the Philistines are ruler over us? What then is this that you have done to us? And he said to them, As they did to me, so have I done to them. Then they said to them, We have come down to bind you, that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, Swear to me that you will not attack me yourselves. Then they said to him, No, we will only bind you and give you into their hands. We will surely not kill you. So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. When he came to Lehi, the Philistine came shouting to meet him. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and the rope that were on his arm became as a flex as the caught fire, and his bound melted off his hands. And he found a fresh jawbones of the donkey, and put out his hand, and took it, and with it he struck 1,000 men. And Samson said, With the jawbones of the donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of the donkey, have I struck down 1,000 men. So, let's take a look at this story for a second. So obviously, Samson, the father-in-law, was actually gave, the woman that Samson loved, and gave it to his companion. And then when Samson came to father-in-law and said, Why did you actually give, this woman to my companion? And said, Well, I thought you hated her, because you gave the answers and she told other peoples, and we thought that, you hated her, so we gave her to your companion. But how about her sister? Her sister is much beautiful than the woman you love. I said, No, I don't want it. And then he was mad at Philistines, and he actually caught up this fox, and then tied up all the foxtails and put a torches bound to it, and then let the foxes run to the farms, and then he burned all the farms. And obviously Philistines were mad, and then they all came up to Israelites and said, like, we all came up to bind up the Samson. And the response of the Israelite to the Philistine is, okay, we'll do it for you. And then he went to the Etham, the rock of Etham, and then actually he binded up the Samson. So when you look at their claim, I said, Samson, you know that Philistines are ruling over us. Why are you stirring up the situations? Why are you making this fuss and mess? We just want to be quiet, and they're ruling over us. We don't have to do anything. We're living in peace. Why are you actually making this, the things that stirring up this, why are you making these people mad? That actually causes trouble. And then we're going to bind you up and give it to Philistines. And Samson said, promise me that you're not going to attack me. I said, no, we're not going to attack you. We're just going to bind you up, give it to the hands of Philistine. Let them handle you. So what is that saying? My hands are clean. I'm not going to kill you. We're not going to kill you. I'm going to wash my hands. It's not my hands we're going to kill you, but let Philistine kill you. So he was giving it to Philistines. And Israelites' perspective, we didn't do anything to harm you. We didn't kill you. We have nothing to do with you. We just gave you to the Philistines and let them kill you. It's not my hands, had blood on your head, but Philistine will. As if, the priest and all this, the Pharisees said, I'm not going to kill you, but let Romans kill you. It's not my hands who will kill you, but let them handle it. But we'll surely do what we want. And then when he actually given it to the Philistines, and the ropes that he had on his arms was just melted like wax, and then pretty much like he untied everything, and he picked up the donkey's jawbones, and then he struck the 1,000 people. I don't know how hard it is to just kill people with the jawbones for 1,000 people. That's a lot. 1,000 people. No, exaggerations that he must be he must have some kind of the muscles, or like some kind of the bulkiness of his body to actually do that, right? To do so. Yeah. So we'll get to that later on. So, and then he killed 1,000 people with the donkey's jawbones, and he says, verse 17, as soon as he had finished speaking, he threw away the jawbones out of his hand, and that place he called Ramah Lehi. And he was very thirsty, and he called upon the Lord and said, you have granted this great salvation by the hand of your servant, and shall I now die of thirst, and I fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? And God split open the hollow place that is at Lehi, and water came out from it. And when he drank, the spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore, the name of it was called En Hakor. It is at Lehi to this day, and he judged Israel in the days of the Philistine 20 years. So, what did he claim? And verse 16 says, And Samson said, With the jawbones of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbones of a donkey, have I struck down 1,000 men. He's boasting about killing 1,000 people with the jawbones. He's boasting about what he had done. When he boasts about his work, he's about to die in thirst. He's boasting himself about what he has done, and he's thirst of dying. But when he cried out to the Lord, and God is the one who provides the living drinks, for that he actually revived. So when he was about to boast about his work, is leading him to death. But when he calls out the Lord's name, Lord is the one who actually revives him through the living water. So there's like two, comparison. The one who boasts about his own work is lead him to death. But when he calls out the Lord's name, the Lord is the one who provides the living water to revive him from the death. Chapter 16. Samson went to Gaza, and there he saw a prostitute, and he went in to her. The Gazites were told that Samson was come here, and they surrounded the place and set an ambush for him all night at the gate of the city. They kept quiet all night, saying, Let us wait till the light of the morning, then we will kill him. But Samson lay till midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the door of the gate of the city, and 2 posts, and he pulled them up, and bar and all, and pulled them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that is in front of the Hebrons. So, where did he go? He went to Gaza. And that's where he was actually tied up with the gate. And in the morning, he pulled the doors, right? He pulled the doors of the city gate and the 2 posts and pulled them up. And he carried with the gate on his shoulder and walked over to Hebron. Once again, he must have muscles of Arnold Schwarzenegger to carry that kind of gate, right? It must be very strong, right? Right? What is this story about? Taking the gate, right? So let's take a look at the prophecies in the past. Genesis chapter 22. Genesis chapter 22. Genesis chapter 22 is about when Abraham was giving his son Isaac to the Lord on the burnt altar. And after he was about to kill his son Isaac, obviously God called him out and said, Abraham, don't kill your son Isaac. And he prepared a young goat or the ram actually as a burnt offering. After this incident, and God told Abraham what would happen. And let's take a look at verse 15 and on. Genesis chapter 22, 15 and on. And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, declared the Lord, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, as the sand that is on the seashore. And your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. What is he saying? Your offspring, what? Correct. So this is something that the angel of the Lord told Abraham what would happen to his offspring. And ultimately, well, that's the cross of Jesus Christ. But at the same time, this was actually prophesied through the angel of the Lord said to Abraham what would happen to his offspring. And this is not the only time. Now turn to Genesis chapter 24. Chapter 24, verse 59 and on. So, actually, verse 57 and on. And they called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" She said, "I will go." So they went away, Rebekah, their sisters, and her nurse, and Abraham's servants and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, "Our sister, may you become thousands of thousands, thousands, 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him." Same thing. Your offsprings will actually take the possessions of the opposed or your enemies, which is exactly what Samson did. And he took the gate of the city and carried over to Hebron. And coming back to Judges chapter 16, verse 4, after this he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the Lord of the Philistine came up to her and said to her, "Seduce him, and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him, and he will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you." Once again, Delilah, which is another Philistine woman, and Samson loved her. And she was a prostitute. So the Philistine came to Delilah, "Seduce him, and tell us a secret and how to overpower him so that we can subdue him." This story is almost identical to the previous story that we just read. Samson loved the Philistine woman for no reason. It's just Samson loved the Philistine woman. Once again, Samson loved this another Philistine woman. And when the Philistine came to her and will give you 1,100 pieces of silver, so then tell us the secret how to overpower him. So from her perspective, and see what she say. She said, "Tell me." Right? Said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you." So, where is her interest? Herself. She's all about money. All she cared about money and for his people. So she has no interest in Samson at all. Samson said to her, "If you bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner chamber, and she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he snapped the bowstrings as the thread of flax snaps when he touches the fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. So obviously, she did exactly what Samson told her. So, as you can see, her interest is only about the treasures and the money that she is about to gain from the other Philistines. She has no interest in Samson. So, from her perspective, whether he dies or not, it's not my business. Only thing I care about money. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound." And she's literally telling him, I said, "Tell me the secret, how to bind, how to bind you." And he said to her, "If they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." So Delilah took new rope and bound him with them, and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And the men lying in ambush were in an inner chamber, but he snapped the rope off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you might be bound." And he said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and fasten it tight with the pin, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wound them into the web. And she made them tight with the pins and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But he woke from his sleep and pulled away the pins and loom and the web. And she said to him, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies." And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day, and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And he told her all his heart, and said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she went and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up again, for he has told me all his heart." Then the lord of the Philistine came up to her and brought the money in their hands. She made him sleep on her knees, and she called the man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And as he woke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shekels. And he ground at the mill in the prison, but the hair of his head began to grow again after he had been shaved. So, eventually, Samson told Delilah about the secret of his power, right? But when you look at this story, Samson knew that she's been leaking this message out to the Philistine, right? And he knew that she's telling everything to the Philistine, but he's just told her the truth, how he can lose his strength. When you look at the Samson and Delilah, as I mentioned, Delilah, her interest is not for him. She has no interest in him. Samson, on the other hand, has interest in her. Samson only has interest in her. Not Philistine, not the money, not anything else. Samson sorely loved this woman for no reason. Is this woman is deserved to receive the Samson's love? I don't think so. But Samson kept loving her and telling her everything, although he knew that she will continue to leak the secret to the Philistines. So although he knew that she will tell the Philistines, and Samson gave all the secrets to Delilah, as if Jesus loved the Gentile woman, the church. No reason. Gave the love until his death. But the Gentiles did not really care about Jesus. They care about their treasure. They care about themselves, not Jesus himself. And then, continue on. Now the lords of the Philistine gather to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. And they said, Our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hands. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, Our God has given our enemies into our hands, the ravager of our country, who has killed many of us. And when their hearts were merry, they said, Call Samson, that he may entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars, and Samson said to the young man who had held him by the hand, Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them. Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, and on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women. He looked on while Samson entertained. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, O Lord God, please remember me, and please strengthen me only this once, O God, that I may be avenged on the Philistine for my 2 eyes. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillar on which the house rested, and he leaned on weight against them, his right hand on one side of his left hand on the other. And Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. Then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he had killed during his life. Then his brothers and all his family came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol and the tomb of Manoah his father. He had judged Israel 20 years. So let's think about it for a second. Is this really his hair giving him a strength? What is actually giving him the strength? It is the Lord who actually gives him a strength. It is not the hair. It's not the hair, and it's giving him a strength. The promise of the Lord is, I will give to Samson, and he will be devoted to the Lord as a Nazarite. And that law that God gave it to him, it is what actually held him and giving him a strength, not the hair itself. And he's giving all his life to love this woman, Delilah, even though he knows that he's going to die. It is a continuous love. And obviously this woman didn't care about Samson. And we don't know what happened to this woman either. But Samson just loved her for no reason and just gave one-way love to her. So most of us, I'll show you something here. No. All right. So when you look at this, screen, this is a kind of one of the paintings. So this is how most people portrayed Samson, right? It's very big and muscles, something like this, right? With the big abs, right? Movie posters like this, it reminds you of like Hercules, right? Or like some type of, bodybuilders, right? Well, this is what, we actually think of as Samson, right? But think about it. If the Samson was like this bulky guys and, just like, very strong and muscles and very strong guy, where does the Spirit of the Lord comes into? If he was a strong, that he actually killed 1,000 people, and he was very strong that he pulled out the city gate and carried over from Gaza to Hebron's, right? He's strong enough to actually, push the pillars, both sides, and crumble the whole cities. If he himself is a strong, where does actually the work of the Spirit? And he was so strong that he struck down the lions. Well, then you don't need the Holy Spirit, right? He himself could be strong, and he could just beat out all these things, and he just is so strong that he could actually push the pillars, left and right, and then crumbled as the whole the cities. This is something that we, as a church, is teaching our fellow Christians, that he was a strong man. And I completely opposed to that. No, it is not his strength did all this. Nothing to do with his strength. He himself could be like very weak guy like me. When someone looks at me and they say like, what he can do? I mean, he's so weak and he's so skinny and he can't do anything. But if the Spirit of the Lord came upon me and I pushed out the pillars on left and right, then no one can. Then you'll be, whoa, what happened to him? Right? You see, when you look at the Samson, there's no mention in the Bible that he was a strong man himself. And he's muscled. He was strengthened because this Holy Spirit was with him. It was the work of the Holy Spirit who made him to do it. And every single time when he beat the lions, when he actually, killed 1,000 men, and when he actually, pushed the pillars, it's all of the work of the Holy Spirit, not himself. We are teaching the wrong thing. Do you understand? But because we have been watching this kind of movies and we've been taught like as if the Samson was a very big and strong guy, this is how we actually see things in the Bible. Think about it. When you think of Jesus Christ, what comes to your mind? What kind of image that comes to your mind? Handsome looking, with the blonde, with the blue eyes, with the very good looking, guy with the mustache. Isn't that what we think of, Jesus? right? That's, every single movie that you watch, it's like it's very handsome guy. But when you look at the Bible, it's far from that image. But what are we portraying? What comes to our mind when you think of Jesus? When you look at the paintings, when you look at the pictures, when you look at the, every image that you can possibly find about Jesus is all good-looking Jesus. But that's the kind of image that we want to have. Why? Because if this is a God that we want to worship, he must be handsome. He has to be handsome. That's what we want, to have that kind of image. We definitely don't want to have image of God that are not good looking. But this is what man desire. This is something what we want to look. Right? Samson, it comes to our mind as he must be like very strong guy, the muscle guy. No, not at all. Then you're leaving no room for the Spirit of the Lord. Correct. So that's very far from the image of Jesus that we think of. We still, even though we know this, when we think about Jesus, what comes to our mind, the image that it's in your head, is that image that you've been taught, like good-looking, white, blonde, blue eyes. Jesus is what you think of. No, that's very far from the Bible. We have to come back to the Bible. We have to understand the story as it is written in the Bible. So, when we read the story of the Samson, first of all, the Samson story is not about Samson. It's about image of Jesus Christ. The story, as you read, you have to read Jesus' story. Of course, this is not a perfect story. This is not Jesus. Samson is not Jesus. This is just nothing more than just the shadow of Jesus. So it's unclear and it's very hazy and it is not clearly defined as Jesus. Well, obviously Jesus does not lie like Samson did. Of course. This is not Jesus. So he's imperfect. He was just referencing Jesus, what he will do and how much that Samson loved the pagan woman. But this is the image of Jesus Christ. Entire Judges that you read here in the story is not about Gideon. It's not about other, the judges. It's not about Samson. It's got nothing to do with them. That's why they're all portrayed as imperfect, because they themselves as a human, although they're actually showing as an image of, the deliverers and a savior, but they themselves are not the savior. So for us, we don't worship Gideons. We don't admire, Samson's strength. That's not what we go after. We just get the message of, this is Jesus who just continually loved the pagan woman for no reason. Although he know that he had to give his life for this woman, he's willing to give that life. And all his work was nothing but the Spirit of the Lord. It's not himself that is actually did all this work. If he himself was a then obviously Jesus, the Spirit of the Lord didn't have to do anything because he himself is strong. So what Spirit of the Lord would do? So for us, we have to remove that image of the Samson and we have to remove the image of the Gideons out of our head. We're not learning about Samson. We're not learning about Gideons. We're not learning about how strong they were and how brave they were. No, nothing to do with that. Do you understand? So this is why I asked you from the beginning, when you think of Samson, what comes to your mind? Right? Everyone pretty much has said strong man's, everyone is saying, it's muscly guys. That's the kind of things that we imagine of a Samson. please remove that image out of your head. It is not Samson who was strong. This is why I kept emphasizing in the Bible, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, then things will happen. It is, I mentioned last week as well, when we do the work in the church, it is not us. Not because I'm smart, not because I'm very skilled, not because I'm good at what I do, but it's the Spirit of the Lord upon me and gives me the strength, could make me to do things. This is where he shine. It is not me. So, as I told you before, when you boast about your work, it is leading you to death. But when you call upon the Lord's name for help, that's where you received the living water to revive your souls and your spirit. This is something that we need to focus on. It is not me. I have to be small. I have to be weak in order for God to use me. When you look at the Bible, there's no story in the Bible says that they themselves are smart and strong and do. This is always the work of the Holy Spirit. It was always the Lord's power to display it over this weak people. David was what? He was just a shepherd. Right? Moses, when he was a strong and when he was a prince, God could not use him. When he was almost useless in the wilderness, that's when God called Moses, and you're ready. So never ever think that they themselves is a smart, brave, they have a strength to do it. No, nothing to do it. When they are weak, then that's where the God's power displayed over them. This is why even the story of the Gideons, when all this, people gather, tell them to go home. Because they themselves is going to boast about, we did it. No. It is not them. Remove all of them. And only leave like 300 people who are very fear. And they're afraid. Acting like a dog. Leave them alone. And I'm going to display my work through them so they cannot boast about their work. It is not you who did this. It is me who made you to do this. It's always the Lord who actually makes us to do work, not ourselves. The Samson's story is the same story. It is not about the Samson itself. And we put a lot of emphasis on the judges or the people in the Bible. No. It's not about people. It's not about Adam. It's not about Abraham. It's not about Isaac. It's not about, Joseph. It's not about Jacob. It's not about Moses. It's not about any one of us. We have to look at who Jesus is, what he will do through all these people. This is why the Old Testament is nothing more than a shadow of the Jesus Christ. His work, his plan to save us, and how much he loves us, and how much we betrayed him, how much we actually selfish about ourselves, and we only care about ourselves. We don't care about the God. We don't care about Jesus. We only care about ourselves. We only care about our family. We only care about our people. That's the only thing we care about. Just like, woman in Gaza and woman in this Delilah, same thing. This woman's only care about themselves, only care about their family. They only care about their people. Nothing to do with Samson. We can kill them with no second thought. So, what I want to actually just share the story of the Samson is, once again, it's the same story over, which we've been talking about all this time when we're reading the Judges. It's just God is using this judge to deliver Israel. when they cried out to the Lord. That's all it is. It's a cycle. It's the patterns. When we're at peace, our faith starts to decline because we're comfortable, right? And we start to forget about Jesus. And then we try to rely on ourselves because I can do everything by myself. I don't need God's work. I started to rely on people. I started to rely on the things that I own. I trust the people who I know. That's what I started to actually rely on more than God. And that's where our faith start to decline. And then boom, there's something happens in my life, and then we just suddenly wake up and awaken and say like, whoa, wait a second, I have to go back to the Lord. And then our faith comes up, and then God takes care of me, and He actually puts me into like peace, and then I started to decline again. Same thing. That's who we are. So we ourselves cannot do anything. It is just the Lord who has to help us to do the work. And this is why we have to pray in the morning and say, Lord, every morning I wake up. It is the life that you've given it to me. And I need to think about what I should do. What you're assigned me to do today, Lord. Help me to do what I need to do through your Spirit. It is not me. You know me very well. And as much as I do, Lord, I know I'm very weak and I can't do anything, Lord. It is you who hold me fast and, raise me up so that I can do my work, Lord. This is the story of the Bible, pretty much. Any questions of the story of Samson or any of the judges?